Hi everyone, this is a quick introduction to the Verb Collective. The Verb Collective is a toolkit designed to help people that are coming from a broad range of disciplines and interests get into making interactive content with Unity. Very quickly, I'm going to just show you how it works. I'm going to open up the Verb Collective folder, which is included in the asset. I'm going to open up the verbs folder, and it's going to show me all the different verbs that are available. These are the default verbs. It's actually quite easy to make custom verbs, which I'll probably be showing in a different tutorial. But for now, I just want to show you how to use the ones that exist. So I'm going to create a cube real quick, just a default cube. And what I'm going to do is drag a basic verb onto it. I'm going to grab to grow. I'm going to drop it on, and you'll see that the to grow script appears here in my inspector. If I hit play, nothing's going to happen. Confirm that. Yeah, that's because none of my verbs are active yet. I'm going to choose to make this one active so that it plays on start. And what we can see is, you can see there's a couple variables here. It's going to grow to about twice its size, and it's going to do it for 3 seconds. The thing that makes the Verb Collective useful and interesting is that actually when verbs are triggered, they actually trigger other verbs. So what I can do is I have that growing, and what I'd like to do is have it shrink back down to size when it's done. So I'm going to grab to shrink, bring it over here. I'm going to leave that inactive. I don't want it to start until I'm ready for it. And I'm just going to change the multiplier to half. So it's going to go to half its size at start. So here we go. So I'm going to take to shrink, and I'm just going to drag this into the triggered verbs field. And what we should see is when I hit play, it should start by growing. And then when it's done growing, we'll see that it shrinks back down to size and, of course, stops. If I want to create a recursive set of interactions, I can actually go into to shrink and just have it trigger to grow. And so now we should see it should just oscillate in size back and forth. So it's going to go to double, it's going to shrink, and when it's done, it's going to go right back up, and so forth. This is nice, but alone wouldn't be that remarkable. The other thing that I can do with the Verb Collective is I'm going to just add another one of these scripts. I'm going to add to rotate. So the question is, how do I get multiple or more complex interactions to take place? And a simple thing is to just simply trigger multiple verbs at the same time. So what I'm going to do is, when to grow is finished and it's going to begin shrinking, I actually want it to rotate as well. I'm going to drag to rotate into that field, and I'm going to have it go for about 3 seconds, and I'll have it do 30 degrees per second. So let's see what that does. I'm going to hit play, and it's going to grow, and when it shrinks, it's going to make about a 90-degree turn. Grow, and so forth. The other thing to keep in mind with verbs is that if they were just triggering, animations on start, there's more efficient ways to do that. The thing that's nice with verbs is that they also act as triggers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another game object. I'm going to say a little sphere here. Just put my sphere here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on my cube, and I'm actually going to say, let's do when distant. I'm going to drag when distant onto my script, and the target of my when distant option here is going to be the sphere. So I'm going to drag that in. I'm going to make this active, and I'm actually going to turn to grow off. I'm going to have when distant trigger to grow, and what when distance does is it just triggers when the two objects that in question are far apart. So when this sphere gets a certain distance from my cube, it's going to trigger that to grow script. So let's see what happens. I'm going to make the threshold on this, let's say 3 units, so it doesn't happen all at once. Hit play. And just here in my view, I'm going to sort of wiggle this around. It's not going to do anything. But as I get 3 units away, you can see I've now triggered that. So whenever this is that distance away, it's going to start that process of triggering those scripts. So let me hit stop here. The idea here is that you could create very simple forms of interaction. For instance, if I just want to take my sphere and I want to give it, let's say, to ascend, I'm going to have that be active. I'll do a quick rate. I'll have it kind of zip up there. I'm going to give it a rate of 5, which is a little bit faster. Well, let's just hit play. So we should see that the sphere goes zoop. It flies up, and as soon as it gets out of range, my cube is going to. So one other thing that I want to show is, using the simple physics engine that comes with Unity, you can also create some basic interactions. So what I'm going to do is create a game object. I'm going to make a sphere here. I deleted the previous one. I'm just going to put this here, and I'm going to pull it up so that it is going to fall on our cube. I'm going to click on this, and I'm just going to delete that when distance script because I don't need it anymore. What I'm going to do is, and this is something I think is also really great, is that I can actually use objects to trigger other objects. So on my sphere, I'm going to add the when hit script. Oops, there we go, when hit. And I'm actually going to have this trigger the verb on my cube. And the way that I do that is I just want to lock this real quickly for my sphere. I'm going to go to my inspector that I've got open in another tab, and I can actually just drag, let's see, to grow from here into this field, and you can see it's going to trigger the script that's on my cube. So what I'm going to do now is make sure that these guys have a rigid body on them, because that is an important part of the when hit script. You can see, let's see, do I have a rigid body on this? I do. I also turned off gravity, and I also froze the position and stuff. For my sphere, I'm just going to create a basic rigid body, and I'm not really going to do anything to it, so that my sphere should fall when this plays. So let's see what happens. Oh, I got to make sure that when hit is active and play. Yep, there we go. So you can see that you can trigger not just verbs on the object that you're working with, but you can trigger verbs that are on any object in the scene. I wanted to show a couple of the verbs. I think that it's useful to get a sense of how they work. They're designed to be as simple and lightweight as possible. Here you can see this is the verb to die. I opened up, this is the little sort of comment of the script that just tells you what the verb does. So the object subject to this verb will be destroyed or removed from the scene. Here you can see where the verb class is declared, and here you can see the name of the script itself. The structure of almost all verbs is essentially the same. There's the variable declarations in the beginning. This one doesn't actually have any other required variables. On start, it's going to set the audio or run any other necessary start functions. And then finally, in the update function, if is active, it will run the primary functions of the verb itself. In this case, it's going to activate the triggered verbs, and then after it's done that, it's going to destroy the game object. It does this in a slightly different order because if you destroy the game object first, it'll lose those verbs. But you can see that this script here is actually the primary piece of functionality, and what we really wanted to do is make this easy to find. So if I go on, let's see, to face, again, you can see this is essentially the code that's powering everything. If I go to spawn, again, I can kind of see that this single line of code is really doing most of the work, and I can find that pretty quickly. And the idea here is to have really as little going on as possible to make these as easy to understand for people that are new to coding.